The clock ticked past 9 p.m. Shadows stretched long and hungry. Another night, another delivery. For some, it meant pizza and a movie. For others, it was a descent into the belly of the unknown. Most delivery drivers had stories, strange encounters, unsettling vibes, the feeling of being watched. The city after dark transformed into a labyrinth of hidden dangers. Every street corner could hold a story, every darkened doorway a potential nightmare. The best stories, the ones that sent shivers down your spine, were whispered in hushed tones. They were the kind that made you check your backseat twice and lock your doors. Tonight, we delve into those stories, the ones that remind us that beneath the veneer of normalcy, darkness lurks. Mark adjusted his rearview mirror. His headlights cut through the thick fog, illuminating the dilapidated sign for Harbinger Lane. The order was for a large pepperoni, extra cheese, to the last house on the left. Simple enough. Harbinger Lane was shrouded in an unnatural stillness. The trees, gnarled and twisted, seemed to reach out towards him. The further he drove, the heavier the air grew, thick with unspoken dread. Finally, he saw it. A Victorian mansion, shrouded in darkness, perched precariously at the end of the lane. Its windows were dark, lifeless eyes staring out into the fog. Mark's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the pizza. A single, flickering light emanated from the top floor. He hoped whoever ordered the pizza would be quick. This place reeked of unease. He walked up the crumbling stone steps, each one groaning under his weight. The air grew colder, a stark contrast to the humid summer night. He rang the doorbell, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. Silence. He waited, then rang again. Still, no answer. He was about to leave the pizza on the doorstep when the light in the top floor window went out. A cold shiver ran down his spine. A low scratching sound came from within the house. It was followed by a soft, almost inaudible whisper. Mark strained to listen, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a step back, clutching the pizza box. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. It sounded like claws on wood. He could feel his pulse quicken. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. Mark jumped back, dropping the pizza box. The sound seemed to come from within the house, muffled but filled with raw terror. As Mark turned to flee, he caught a glimpse of something in the window. A face, pale and gaunt, with eyes that burned with an unholy light. It stared directly at him, a silent scream frozen on its lips. He didn't hesitate. He ran faster than he'd ever run before, his lungs burning, the image of the face seared into his mind. The screams continued, echoing in his ears long after he'd sped away from the house. That night, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he'd seen something truly evil, something that defied explanation. He never returned to Harbinger Lane, and the memory of the face in the window continued to haunt his nightmares.
The warm glow of the pizza shop sign was the only comfort in the cold, dark night. Inside, 20-year-old Michael was folding pizza boxes, his heart heavy with a premonition of something evil lurking in the shadows. He was just trying to make some extra cash, but tonight, the job felt different. The air was thick with a silence that was almost deafening, broken only by the eerie hum of the fluorescent lights. Michael glanced at the clock, each tick of the second hand sending a shiver down his spine. The phone's shrill ring shattered the silence, making Michael jump. He took a deep breath and answered, forcing a cheerful tone into his voice. The order was for a large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese to be delivered to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. It wasn't an unusual order, but something about the caller's raspy voice made Michael's skin crawl. He grabbed his delivery bag, his hand trembling slightly as he shoved the pizza box inside. As he walked out into the night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The old beat-up Honda Civic sputtered to life, each cough of the engine echoing in the stillness of the night. As Michael pulled out onto the deserted highway, he couldn't help but notice a pair of headlights in his rearview mirror looming closer. He tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just his imagination, but the car maintained a steady distance like a predator stalking its prey. Each time he glanced in the mirror, the headlights seemed to burn brighter, piercing through the darkness and sending a chill down his spine. The motel was a collection of dilapidated buildings, their paint peeling like scabs. Michael parked his car and got out, clutching the pizza box like a shield. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and stale cigarette smoke. He could feel his pulse quicken as he approached the room number the caller had given him. A man opened the door, his face half hidden in the shadows. His eyes, though, were clearly visible, and they seemed to bore into Michael's soul. They were empty eyes, devoid of any warmth or humanity, the eyes of a shark. Michael thrust the pizza box forward, avoiding the man's gaze. "That'll be $12.50, he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. The man made no move to take the pizza or pay. He just stood there, his eyes fixed on Michael, a faint smile playing on his lips. Michael's hand trembled as he reached for the wad of bills in his pocket. He counted out the money and handed it to the man, who finally broke eye contact to take it. Without a word, the man shut the door, leaving Michael standing alone in the darkness, his heart pounding in his chest. The drive back to the pizza shop was a blur. Michael's mind raced with questions, his gut churning with unease. He tried to convince himself that he was overreacting, that there was a perfectly logical explanation for everything that had happened. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When he finally arrived home, he was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He just wanted to forget about the night's events and get some sleep. But as he was about to drift off, he heard a knock at the door. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't expecting any visitors at this late hour. He cautiously approached the door and peered through the peephole. Standing on his doorstep was the man from the motel, his empty eyes boring into Michael's soul even through the distorted lens. Michael's breath caught in his throat. What was he doing here? How did he find out where he lived? 1,000 terrifying thoughts raced through his mind. Before Michael could collect his thoughts, the man spoke, his voice a raspy whisper that sent shivers down Michael's spine. "I forgot to tip you," he said, holding up a $5 bill. Michael hesitated for a moment, torn between his fear and the need to get rid of the man. He slowly opened the door a crack, just wide enough to take the money, but as he reached for the bill, the man's hand shot out, grabbing Michael's wrist with an iron grip. "You know," the man hissed, his breath hot on Michael's face, "you forgot to give me my change." Adrenaline surged through Michael's veins. He knew he was in danger. He had to get away. With a desperate burst of strength, he wrenched his arm free and slammed the door shut, the sound echoing in the silent night. He fumbled with the deadbolt, his hand shaking so badly that he could barely get it to lock. He raced to the window and peeked out through the blinds. The man was gone. Michael didn't sleep that night. He spent the long, dark hours pacing his apartment, his mind racing with questions. Who was that man? Why was he following him? And how did he find out where he lived? The next day, Michael went to the police, but they didn't take him seriously. They said he was just letting his imagination run wild, that there was no evidence to support his claims. But Michael knew what he had seen. He knew he was being followed, and he knew that he was in danger. Michael quit his job at the pizza shop that day. He couldn't bring himself to go back, knowing that the man with the empty eyes might be waiting for him. He never saw the man again, but he never forgot him either. The experience left an indelible mark on his psyche, a constant reminder that there are dark forces at work in the world, forces that we may never fully understand. And sometimes the most ordinary of jobs, like delivering a pizza, can lead to the most terrifying of encounters. To this day, Michael refuses to order takeout after dark.